So, by now you have become familiar with the multi-attribute approach of decision making. This is a real nice, clean way of formalizing choice behavior of humans. It helps you, for example, in trading off environmental outcomes and costs and thinking about what is, for you as a person, the most optimal choice to make. The example of Keith and Nora explains to you that people can have different weights for these attributes. So you can have more importance to environmental outcomes, but you can also attach more value to the costs of an option. The example of Keith and Nora is really very clean in that. So this multi-attribute approach seems to be really a good approach to model behavior, right? Or is it?
Just imagine if you buy a product like tea. Would you use the same decision process to choose tea in a small shop where there are only 3 choices versus buying tea in a large supermarket with 50 different types of tea? Would it be different if you are in a hurry versus having all the time in the world to choose between different types and brands, organic and fair trade? Does it matter if you buy tea every week? And what happens if all of your friends suddenly start drinking yerba mate? What if you want to buy a fruit tea, but you know your spouse prefers green tea and you only have money to buy 1 package? And when you go shopping, there is typically much more on your list than just tea. Imagine using multi-attribute choice to all your weekly grocery shopping. You would likely never reach the cashier before the shop closes. Probably you will have your favorite brands and blends of tea, and you will put them habitually in your shopping cart together with many different products, and you will never think about it again. Habits are one of the mechanisms we've got to make our decisions easier. This will save us time that we can devote to other things that require our attention. For example, we can make a call with a friend while doing our grocery shopping.
Sometimes we really make very important decisions that require a lot of attention. Think, for example, if you decide on what study to follow, or if you want to buy a laptop, or you want to purchase a car. In these situations, you can imagine that a utility maximization approach is very practical. But even in such situations, we use simpler heuristics in reducing the complexity of the choice situation. For example, if you want to buy a car, you could first decide what brand before you zoom in a more specific choice. In this situation, we use heuristic to simplify the choice. And a scholar who is really famous for studying these heuristics was Herbert Simon. Herbert Simon was a scholar very famous in the field of human decision making. And he made a distinction between outcome rationality, that is focusing on getting the best outcomes, and procedural rationality, which means how much of your cognitive resources do you invest in coming to a decision. And as people, we have to balance that out. How much do you need to think about a problem to come to a conclusion that is good enough? And this is basically satisfying, coming to a choice that is good enough.